Hi, hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our ReSkills Life Talk show. So, with you this evening is me, Nadira, and I'll be your host for today's Life Talk show. Since I'm the host, of course, I'll have someone together with me today, right? But before that, let me tell you a tiny bit about our special guest this evening. We're going to take you together with us to fly to Indonesia as our coach this evening comes from there. So he is a young, dynamic, and passionate neurosemantics trainer. So, alright, I do not want to tell more about him because I'm sure many of you want to listen to the man himself, right? So, are you guys ready? So, without further ado, let us welcome our special guest for this evening's live talk, Coach Irvan G.
Hello everybody. Hi
Hello,
Nadira.
hello,
Thank
Coach
you for hosting.
Irvan.
You fly here quite fast, so I can see you now.
Yes, hi, how are you doing, Coach?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So,
Mhm.
thank you for being here with us today despite
It's
your
my
busy
pleasure.
schedule. Thank you. So, all right, Coach, we
Yeah.
have quite a lot of learners here from
Oh, hi.
our ReSkills app. Yeah, now we have
Nice.
222 people joining us.
Nice. And I bet it's all over the world.
Yep.
So let's see. My furthest one was from Pakistan. Let's see if it goes further this time.
Okay, let's see. Okay. And we also have participants from our Facebook too.
Oh, hello Facebook.
Yep. All right. Okay. I got a lot of questions here from the learners. They're
Ooh,
asking, where are you from?
I'm from
So,
Indonesia, Jakarta to be exact. And it's
all right.
raining here. If in case you hear something, it's raining. It's not your monitor, it's not your headset, it's just raining here.
All right. So, with that, okay,
Mhm,
Coach, this session, right, this live
mhm,
talk show is mainly for our learners and the people out there to get to know you better as a coach in these
mhm,
skills.
mhm.
Okay, so can you share with us a little bit about your family background, where you came from, how many
Yeah,
siblings you have, and so on?
sure. Um, my name is Irvan G. G is my family surname. If it's in Malaysia, it's Yi. So I grew up in Jakarta. I was born in Jakarta. Right now, I'm 39 years old, and I'm not single. I'm double double, meaning I have a wife, so it's double, and I have two kids, so that's double. I have one sister, so I'm the oldest of two,
Mm-hmm.
and my parents come from Indonesia. They are born in Indonesia, but my grandparents are from Guangdong, China. So my grandparents are straight from China. They come from, I think it's the southern part, isn't it? Guangdong. So that's where they're from. And they've been living here since the 1940s. So I'm third generation Chinese Indonesian.
I
Mm,
see. All right. So, Coach, just now you mentioned that you were the eldest in the
mhm.
siblings, right?
Yep, yep.
So, how does it feel to be the eldest in the family? I mean, like the responsibility, the expectations from the parents, from the relatives, right? So, can you share with us?
So as the oldest, I can tell you it's been great. But
Mm-hmm.
then my little sister sometimes annoy me. So when we were growing up, I remember this one time she took a look into my diary, and I remember at that moment in time I say to myself, I will never ever write anything again. Up until I was like 37, I start writing again. So that's one of the impact because of one little sister. So be careful with a little sister. But as for responsibility goes, I guess it's the same for everybody. As the oldest son, my parents expect me to be responsible. My parents
Mm-hmm.
expect me to be more mature than my sister and give her the example.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've been doing for the past, what? She's 4 years younger than me. So for the past 35 years, I've been doing that. She even went to the States with me. So as I was learning in the States, he came to the States and I
Mm-hmm.
was taking care of her. And our parents are quite nice, actually. They never differentiate us. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like more as a sibling love, even though sometimes she's very annoying, but she's my
Mm-hmm.
sister after all, and I still love her.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's the same for every Chinese parents out there. The oldest one are expected to take care of their little sisters or little brothers. Tell me if I'm wrong. So,
Alright, so since you are Chinese Indonesian, right? So like as we know in Indonesia, whether you're Chinese, despite the races there, like, you guys still talk Indonesia, right? So how is it being a Chinese Indonesian in Indonesia itself?
well, I was quite lucky. I never experienced that racism per se, because some of my Indonesian friends are actually really nice. So since I was little, I had Indonesian friends. Our community is actually quite diverse, but I grew up mostly in a secluded area, so it's predominantly Chinese. So I don't feel that racism. But I remember there's this one time my parents told me not to speak Chinese, so I never learned how to speak Chinese. My parents forbid me to speak Chinese. Well, I guess it's their fears at that moment in time, and therefore I'm not using my Chinese name. My Chinese name is Yu Hengwan, so I have a Chinese name, but I only use it in the house, never use it outside. But then 98 happens. So when 98 happens, that was the first time I realized that there's racism. But then after that, I never experienced it again. So right now it's quite okay. I have a lot of Indonesian friends. As for myself, there is no such thing as different race, because I think we are all Homo sapiens. We haven't found any other race beside Homo sapiens. So we are all one race. There's just different ethnics, and ethnics are just mates, right? And if you took it a million years ago, we come from the same species and from the same space. So me personally, I don't actually feel that, but I know some of my friends that did, and I'm sorry for them. I'm sorry for that it happened. But I guess it happened. It's something that happened, and for me, it's quite okay. I mean, racism will always happen no matter where you go, as long as you know that treat people as you want to be treated.
Yeah, that's true. Totally agree on that. So, Coach, just tell us how were you brought up by your parents? Like, how did they raise you until you become who you are now?
My mom gonna kill me if she listens to this. She's a tiger mom. So if you know the term tiger mom, so that's my mom. She's very strict, but my father is very lenient. So my father is the nice cop, my mom is the bad cop. But I'm very grateful for them, because then I learned how to be disciplined. From my father, I learned how to be caring and loving. Although now I know that my mom actually did it because she loved me. So I grew up knowing that I have a certain standards that I need to meet, and I need to be caring, I need to be loving, I need to be the best that I can be. So that's what my mom instilled in me. She never settled for less. She gave me all the courage and strength to be the man I am today. And from my father, I learned how to be grateful. So my mom and my father, I think, is the best parents I could ever ask for, and I think that's the same for my sister. Yep.
All right. So, Coach Irvan, I'm sure we all have our own ambitions when we were young, right? So, like myself, I used to want to be a lawyer, a doctor, or even a policeman, and it kept changing over the years. So, what about you, Coach? What was your ambition when you were younger?
When I was young,
what you want to be?
when I was young, I had this ambition to be the first Chinese president in Indonesia when I was young. But I guess that was shattered because Abdurrahman Wahid mentioned that he's part Chinese, so I cannot do that anymore. And then I remember when so I won't be able to be the first. Darn it. But when I was growing up as a kid, I always wanted to be a businessman somehow. So I always want to go into business, especially when I'm in high school. I know that my allowance is not as big as my friends, and I feel that I want to be a good businessman to earn money. So my ambition when I was young by the age of 35, I have my own company. So that was my ambition. My family run a business, so I was thrown into business settings early on. So I know what business looks like. That's why I took business as my undergraduate degrees. And then my ambition was just to be successful. I guess it was to be rich, if you could say that. In a very adolescent way of thinking, I want to be rich.
All right. So you say you already have the business in you since you were young, right? So, like, do you ever experience any business in your younger days? Like, do you sell to your friends? Like, they sell sweets or snacks to your friends? Do you do that?
Yeah. When I was growing up in high school, there was this craze for PlayStation 2. And as you know, Indonesian, there's a lot of pirated games. Tell anyone, please. And I sell pirated games for a while. And this was a funny story. I sell pirated games because I want to earn money. I want to have my own allowance. So I have my own money. And then during that time, there's a girl that I like. So I want to earn money to buy some presents for her birthday. So I sell a lot of games. I sell a lot of games to this one person. I sell it to this one person, one particular guy that I sold a lot of games to, and I earn my money and I buy something nice for the girl that I like in I think it was high school. And then I got that present, a big, I think it's a big teddy bear that I bought. So I got it from the money that I sold this game to one person. And eventually I gave it to her, but then eventually that girl and the guy that I sell to become couple. So I just use my luck. So I sell a lot of games. That hurts. But that keep me going. I sell a lot of games. When I was in college, I sell a lot of eBay. eBay was a thing. I sell a lot of imported Chinese goods. So I know one importers, and I took their stuff and sell it on eBay. I also run a couple of counseling places. So I start running all those to earn money for myself, even before I finish college. So my first real business that is certified by the government was when I was in sophomore year, my second year in college. So that was my first taste of real business and taxes.
So basically, your business is like your part-time, right? Your full-time is your study.
Yeah.
Wow, that's good.
Well, there's at one time, again, please don't tell this to my mom if she's listening. There's this one time that I really focused on business that I forgot to go to school.
What? Really?
Yeah. Because
you mean you just skip school, is it?
Yeah, because I saw a lot of stuff. There's this one time I found a Zippo lighter factory. So I told them, can I sell Zippo? They told me to go to their distributor. So I did. I did go to their distributors in my area. I took Zippo from them. And then I actually rent the Zippo big case, the 144 Zippo's case, and put it in a mall, in somebody else's store, and say, we split profit. So there's this one time, I think for several months, all I did was checking Zippos and then selling them and then actually refilling them. So every day I went to the mall. I think that's the life. Everybody wants to go to the mall back then. Nobody wanted to go to the mall. Yeah. And that goes all the way until my adolescent years, until I grew up. I worked in the mall. So my main business used to be in the mall. So I love malls.
I see. Okay. Were that in Jakarta or in the US? Jakarta?
So in the US and Jakarta. So my first fascination in the mall was when I was in the US, when I was selling Zippos. And then when I go back to the Indonesian side, our family has a business that sells stuff in the malls. So we have our own boutiques. We have a branded leather goods that we imported. And we sell it in the mall. So every day what I do is just mall hopping from one mall to the other.
I see. That's good. That's great. Okay. So moving on to the next question, Coach.
Sure. Go ahead.
Can you tell us on your education background, like what is your major or what course did you take back then? in your college years?
I went to the University of Central Oklahoma. So I'm an Okie guy. If you know an Okie guy, that's a slang for American. That's I'm a Southerner. So I went there for undergraduate and my graduate degrees. My undergraduate was in information system and operations management. So it's what you call, I think in this part of the world, is management information system. So it's the cross between the programmers and the business side. So I connect the programmers and the business. That's my undergraduate degrees. And then I work there for a year in the States. It's in the same place, Oklahoma. And I took my graduate degrees in MBA, in Master of Business Administrations. My elective was leadership and marketing. So that's my graduate degrees. So I had experience working in the States, because at that time, everybody that graduated from the States, they have 1 year for optional practical training. So I took that. So I worked there for, I think, 2 years already. Yeah, I worked there for 2 years. So that's my background.
All right. So, when you had your MBA, right, from the US, so how was the experience having to study there? Like, what are the challenges that you face during the study years? Like,
It reminds me of that.
It's quite, let's say, different from our home country, right? How do you adapt with that?
I experienced a culture shock the first time I went there. I was so amazed that there's such a place exists where everybody was just so straightforward. It's just like here, everybody's straightforward there. I guess the biggest challenge was coming to terms that you are not in your home country. So you need to adapt with the situations. You need to adapt with the culture. You need to adapt with different surroundings, with different kinds of people. I think that was my first experience to actually speak with people other than from my country. So I had a lot of international friends when I was there. And taking...
So there was a language barrier over there, is it?
There are some, at least at the very first few months, because I'm so used to English when I was 17.
I see.
Remember, because my parents don't let me to learn Chinese, they told me to learn English since I was in kindergarten. So I learned English since kindergarten. So the language barrier was just for a few months, just to adapt with their local slangs and to adapt with their local accent. So if you realize now, I started to speak like an Okie. But then I remember this one thing that my professor told me when we took our first class in MBA class. They say, who wants to be rich? And me, as a young guy, I say, me, I want to be rich. That's why I took my MBA. And then I remember exactly what he said. He said to me, if you want to be rich, you're not here. You're opening a business somewhere. Why are you taking your MBA here? So I was like, what happened? But then I learned what he meant to be. He meant to be, if you want to take MBA, then take it seriously, because it's something that can shape the way you think. So taking an MBA for me is just how to shape the way you think. It's not the education per se. It's just shaping you how to think business-wise and making better decisions. So that's why I love the MBA. I haven't took my postgraduate yet. I was actually trying to be a professor at one moment in time, but then I realized, because I love business, so I'm doing businesses. So I guess I'm hoping some university will give me a honoris causa professor title somewhere, somehow. So let's hope that for the future, because if I want to go to postgraduate, probably I'm going to lose more hair. Yeah.
So, like the MBA, right? I've been doing my research because I was thinking of taking the MBA too.
Oh, good.
One of the requirements is that we need to have the experience in working, right?
Yep.
Okay, so what do you think of it? Like, do we really need that experience as required by the university?
Yeah, it's gonna help, because even for me, when I graduate from the undergraduate from my information systems, I really don't know what I want to become. I really don't know what kind of business that I want to go into. So therefore, I worked for a year before I took my MBA. And during that one time in a year, I worked with one of my best friends. He's much older than me. He's much wiser, and he worked in this one company. It's called Kirby Smith Machinery. It's a Komatsu service area, and we sell Komatsu heavy equipment. So I worked there for a year, and that's where I really contemplate and I really think about what I want to become. Because my job there was to be a purchaser. So I purchased all the spare parts for the Komatsu heavy equipment. And I thought to myself, well, purchasing is a very fun place to be. Because now you know, it relates to business, right? You buy a certain parts and then you sell it for profit. So that's where I start to learn, oh, okay, so here's the supply chain. This is where you get the stuff, this is how you sell it, and this is how you make money out of it. So it correlates with the way of I'm thinking of making my own business. So after that, then I took my MBA, knowing that someday I want to have a business just like that. So I learned with my experience, knowing that I can have a business selling stuff. That was my take on it. So it's very beneficial if you work before you go to your MBA. Because if you just if you just study and study and study, you're probably going to know a lot of stuff, but I don't know if you can still do it. Pragmatically do it with doing what you know. So you're closing the knowing doing gap. And I don't know about you, like if you have your own major and if you're working in your own field, then you can test if you really like it or not. Because I graduated from information system, well, it's part computer science, although it's very operation management. During that time working, I realized that I don't like programming. I don't like sitting in a computer and just type there all day long. I think that's one of the main reasons that I didn't go into computer science graduate degrees. That's why I took business, because I like talking with people. I like connecting with people. I like the communication part. So it really helps me hone into what I really want because of that working experience. And it gives you a glimpse of what's the real business role like. So instead of just knowing from the books, because I remember all the cases that I studied during my undergraduate, it became obsolete when I was taking my graduate degrees. And what I learned in graduate degrees, it's obsolete a year after I graduate from graduate degrees. So by working, by knowing the real businesses that you have, it's actually going to help you hone into what you really want, and you have a glimpse of that real business.
So Coach, we have a question from Zoom.
Sure. So what?
I have a mini MBA. Can it help me to have my full MBA in short time? If yes, can you help me to find an organization?
So I don't know what the mini MBA terms mean because I've never taken the mini MBA. But here's the one thing that I learned from my MBA. It just shaped the way you think. My guess, if your mini MBA is really sharpening the way you think about business, mostly it's about finance, mostly it's about management, and mostly it's about leadership and marketing. I remember this professor that told me, the only word that you're going to take when you took your MBA is learning how to say the word, it depends. Because business is everywhere. When you talk about business, when you talk about marketing, leadership, sales, management, everything is very dependent on context. So it's just shaping the way you think. You're not thinking linearly, but you're thinking holistically about business. Because everything is interconnected. So if your mini MBA is helping you to connect those thoughts, and it shapes you to think not just in very unidimensional sales or leadership or marketing or finance way, it's going to help. And in terms of will it help you to have your own full MBA, I don't think I'm qualified to answer that because I really don't know what kind of mini MBA you're taking and where are you taking it and how are you planning to use it for your own MBA. But does it help in organizations? I will take anybody that like to learn in my own organization. So one of the things that I know when you're taking an MBA or you're taking a graduate classes is it just show me that you like to learn. I guess that's why that people like this kind of app, ReSkills. For me, people who are willing to learn, or people who is willing to spend time to learn, whether in this app, in ReSkills, or in the mini MBA, you are far above, greater than everybody else. Because a lot of people just doesn't learn. So good for you taking that mini MBA.
Okay, the person answered in the chat room. Said, I have many MBA, which is management and finance and marketing.
Good.
6 hours a day during 3 months. I am from Tunisia.
That's a very good one. So I think that's the 3 things that you really need to learn. Well, especially if you're in Tunisia. I don't know about Tunisia, but I have some friends there. Tunisia. Yeah, I have some friends there. So in that area, people are very smart. Most of people that I know from Tunisia are really smart. So if you're taking that, it just show your quality. And don't just take it for the title, but take it for the learning. A lot of people love to learn, but they just don't know how to learn, because it's 2 different things between knowing and doing. So learning is a very important skill. So if you're learning that, especially 6 hours for 3 months, man, that's a lot. My MBA was like 2 years. And I cannot imagine learning for 6 hours a day. How much hair will I lose by that time? So good for you.
Okay, good. Since our topic today is being my best self, right?
Yeah.
So do you think by taking our major in college will help us guarantee a place in the working later?
So the answer is not that simple, because there's 2 layers for that. The first layer is, will it help you? Yes. But will it not? Yes. Because think of it this way. If you want to become the best that you can be in every aspect of your work, then it's just not knowing. Well, knowing is just one thing, but doing it is another. Well, because when you learn, first you also have that background information, that knowledge from your classes, from your MBA or for whatever. You have that background knowledge. And that background knowledge somehow needs to be integrated within you for you to be able to work. Because learning is different with doing. So by that sense, whatever you learn in, whether in high school, whether you only learn in high school or in college, take that and integrate with yourself so that you can do it. Otherwise, you're just knowing, you're just smart here, but you're not smart in actually doing it. Therefore, it takes 2. It takes knowing and it takes experience. So if you want to be the best that you can be, know the material inside out. If you want to learn about marketing, then learn the hell a lot about marketing. And then actually start in doing it. Because if you don't do it, it's useless. It's just a piece of paper eventually. And there's so many people that's very smart, but their smartness sometimes, and here's the second part, sometimes it hinders them from doing. Because they're very smart, and here's the curse for smart people. Smart people has the greatest excuse. So God is fair. Some people that doesn't learn, they just do, they become successful. And some people that's really smart, it stops them from doing, and they will never succeed. So sometimes in a sense, it's good if you're smart, and you also have that foolishness to try. And accepting failures and learning from failures and having that experience to actually do the things that you like. Because my guess is everybody here that went to the college probably and hopefully it's because you like it. It's not because somebody told you so.
Yes, all right. Okay, Coach, moving on to the next question. What is your career history? So can you tell us a bit of your career history?
So my career history. So I'm quite fortunate and quite lucky. like I said, my first business, real business, when I was in college. I sell stuff on eBay, so that's my first business. But my career per se, I used to be a purchasing agent, and then I start learning about marketing in my graduate degree, and then I graduated. My first job was as a marketing research. So I went to this very prestigious marketing research firm and a marketing firm in the States, in Oklahoma. We're actually the firm that brings Seattle Supersonics to become Oklahoma City Thunder. So that was our marketing firm that did it. And so my first love was marketing research. So I love data because I'm an information system guy. I love data. But then after that, because they're trying to sponsor me for a green card, but I rejected it because I figure, well, all of my family is in Indonesia, so I don't want to spend my whole life away from them. So me and my wife eventually decided to go back to Indonesia. And I'm very fortunate because my family owned a business. So after I graduate, and then working in that marketing research firm, I went back home to Indonesia. When I went back home, I became a marketing manager directly. Just right after my plan landed in Indonesia, the next day I'm the marketing manager of my family company. So it was a branded leather goods. So if I mention the brand, everybody all probably knows. It's a very famous brand. So I spent 2 years there. I spent 2 years there, and then I feel empty. I feel bored because working as a manager, you only manage the day-to-day. So that's why I go mall hopping because there I meet all the salespeople, I meet the supervisors, I meet the manager of the malls, and have a chit chat with them. And that's where I start learning about communications and learning about coaching. So I went there for 2 years as a marketing manager, and then I decided that I want to work again for somebody else. So I find a very big marketing firm and marketing research firm in Indonesia. I worked there for another year. I got hijacked to an international marketing company. So I worked there for about a year. So my background is basically retail and marketing research. And after that marketing research, I start building my own company. So I had a joint venture with my father's friend. We sell another branded leather goods. We imported them from China and then sell it in the malls in Indonesia, especially in the high-end malls. And I've been doing that since 2012, 2013, up until 2018. So that was my career before I became a full-time trainer and coach. So
how from that into coach?
Yeah. So here's the story. When I was in my own business, I figured out, hey, how can I make this business better? I think I want to become a consultant because I see consultant is very smart. They have all the tools they need to actually help a business succeed. So I figured out I want to be a consultant. Let's see who's the best consultant there is. At that time, there was McKinsey and all the big stuff. I will never be able to go into Boston Consulting Group or McKinsey. I'm not that smart. So I figured, okay, what's the next best thing after consultant? And I talked with a lot of people. I talked with some of my business friends. They say, hey, coaching is actually becoming a trend now. Okay, what's coaching? I didn't know what coaches are. So I asked one of my friends, and he coached me on the spot. And there I realized, hey, this is kind of interesting. You don't need to know all the answers, but you can ask questions so that people find the answers by themselves. I say, that's great. I don't need to be as smart as those McKinsey and Boston Consulting Group people. I can just learn how to ask questions and I can help people. Wow, that's so amazing. So I learned while I was still in business in 2015. I started learning neurosemantics. Before that, I was taking a self-development course. It's called the Ego State Therapy. Now it's Resource Therapy. And then I learned about coaching. At first, I learned about the simple coaching ways. A lot of people know probably about GROW, the GROW model, the SCORE model. And I feel that it's not adequate enough. It's not up to the standard that I wanted to. So I start looking for NLP. I asked a lot of my people that they were really smart and they're coaches. hey, if I want to be a coach, what do I need to learn? I asked them, and mostly everybody told me, learn NLP. What the hell is that? I didn't know what NLP is back then. So I started searching in Indonesia. There are several prominent NLP gurus or leaders in Indonesia. There's this one guy that teach NLP and business. I really wanted to go there because I think he's the best fit for me. But then his course is next year away. It was October 2014. So his course was in February. So I figure, okay, from all this guru, where's the nearest one? There's one in November 2014, and I finished in November 15. So I took that one, and she's one of the best mentor and coach that I've ever seen in my life. Her name is Mariani Ng, if you know. She's the I think she's the one who took neurosemantics to Indonesia, and she's the one that takes meta coaching to Indonesia. So I learned from her, 2015. At that point, I was still in business, and my business was doing very well. So I have the money to go, and it's not cheap. So I took that NLP course. I took the coaching certifications, and within 2 years, I became a trainer. So that really changed the way I see business. That really changed the way I view people development and self-development. And then I learned that it's actually quite empowering, not just for me, but also for my clients. So I started, and people start noticing me and asking me to train their organization. So I did. When I was still having my own business to run, I actually give trainings to other companies and multinational companies. And I start coaching people at that time, 2016 and 17, up until 2018 when I decided to become a full-time trainer and coach. So that's one of my greatest joy. And I got out of the retail business because the company, it's a very old style company. And then the 2018 crisis happens. And then 2019 and 2020 is because COVID. So I get out of that business at the really right time. I guess it's just my path. So I closed that business down and become a full-time trainer and coach. So that's the history. So I became a trainer and coach right while I was still in business and after my business closed. And that's what I've been doing for the past 3 years now.
I see. So what inspired you to become a coach? Like, is it from your family background? Is there anyone from your family were a coach or a teacher or from this industry ever?
No, that's quite interesting because nobody in my family is actually a coach or a trainer. But then I asked my dad, do you see something in me so that I become a coach? Well, he mentioned, when you were little, do you know that you always gather people around? When you were a kid, he literally took me into this supermarket, and suddenly I was just vanished, and I took several kids with me and just talking to them. So I guess it's just an omen that I will probably become a teacher or a coach. And then I realized my parents told me about our family lineage in China. And most of our family in China way back when was all scholars. So the educated people of that area. So I guess that comes from the lineage. But what made me very interested to become a coach was 2015 when I first took my NLP course with Coach Mariani. I had this problem in a sense. For me, it's a problem. Well, because my parents are really smart. My dad is really smart. He went to this school and he had 2 junior high. So one junior high in the morning and the other junior high is in the afternoon. 2 different schools. So imagine that. Who is in their right mind want to study in 2 schools, morning and afternoon? Nobody, right? Just for him to get into high school. Oh, and I went to the same school. In Indonesia, yeah, in Indonesia. And I went to the same school with my parents. And not just my parents, my whole parents' family went to the same school. And they're all smart. And I still remember this teacher, this math teacher, when I was, I think, about in third grade or fourth grade. This math teacher told me, "Why are you not as smart as your parents?" And in that moment in time, I start comparing myself to my parents, and I said to myself, I will never be as smart as my parents. So I start comparing myself with my cousins, although I'm sure my parents don't have that intentions for me. So, and at that moment in time, I become self-aware. I start comparing myself. I think I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not prominent enough, up until I learned that NLP course with Mariani. Within 3 questions, she shattered all of that. And I can come out of parent shadows and just become myself with just 3 questions. So at that moment in time, I know that, wow, this is such a powerful tool, Neurosemantics NLP is. And I wanted to become a person like that, like her, like Coach Mariani, a people that can unleash people, all the things that have been blocking them and hindering them, and I can just unleash people just by asking the right questions. So that's why I fell in love with Neurosemantics, and that's why I decided to become a full-time trainer and coach, because I've seen it again and again and again. If you ask the right questions, people will just open up, they'll just blossom. They'll just find their real self. They took off all the chains that been hindering them, all the locks that they're carrying around, all the burdens are just gone, and they just become the best version of themselves. So that's why I really love Neurosemantics and meta coaching. And from that moment in time, I really devoted myself to learn Neurosemantics, NLP, and meta coaching.
Really? So, Coach, can I be in your class?
Yeah, sure, anytime. It's free on ReSkills if you join. Yep.
All right. So for the next question, so what are the challenges of becoming a coach?
The challenges of becoming a coach and mentor.
Yes.
Well, in Neurosemantics, we have this value. It's called applying to self. I think that's one of my biggest challenge. Because all these years, for 35 years, I've been running scared with my own ego. I've been comparing myself to others, and I'm feeling that I'm not smart enough. So my biggest challenge was to come into terms with all that. To come into terms that I've been grown up for 35 years, not knowing who my real and best self is. So that was the biggest challenge. And by knowing how to apply to myself, I can be congruent. Because the best way when you become a coach and the best way to become a good mentor is to be congruent with what you're teaching. And I'm learning that all year long, all day long, every breath that I take. Because if I'm not congruent, if I'm not applying the skills that I know to myself, if I'm not closing my own knowing and doing gap, then how can I teach or how can I coach effectively? Like I taught happiness in ReSkills. My first class was in happiness because it's my own struggle too. There's this one time when I was teaching, and then suddenly my wife hears it, and you know what she said to me? You're teaching happiness. Look at yourself. You're not even happy. And I was like, what's going on? But she's right, because she's the one who's living with me every day. She knows how I am. So it's just giving me a challenge to actually do the things that I taught. So the biggest challenge is to come into terms with who you really are. To come into terms what can you become and how to become that person. Because again, knowing and doing, it's 2 different things. My biggest challenge is also closing the knowing and doing gap. And I've been struggling with self-esteem for the better part of myself because of comparing that and because of that math teacher. Although I'm sure he doesn't actually mean it, but I'm just with my own childish thinking that I thought it is, and coming into terms with that. I even had some challenges to admit that I'm quite smart. Because again, the lineage from my parents are smart. So I'm pretty sure I'm smart now, but I used to not feel it. So I kind of suppressed it and I kind of hide it because I don't want people to know that I'm smart. And I suppressed it with joking, with making a fool out of myself. Being the class clowns, and having people laughing at me. It makes me secure. So my biggest challenge was to come to terms with all that within me and become that congruency. And if I want to teach people to be the best that they can be, then I need to be the best that I can be. It's just a mirror. So and that way I can actually admit my mistakes so that I can spot and see people's mistake. I need to be able to know what I'm missing so that I can tell and show people what they are missing. I need to be able to know what I'm thinking and how it's not useful for me so that I know and I can show people that it's not useful for them. So that was the biggest challenge. So it fits me with neurosemantics also because it's one of the biggest value actually, applying to self. Therefore, you're using what you know and doing it exactly on how you think it should be done. So that was my challenge.
Right. So, Coach, with our topic today being my best self, right? So, how would you tell the learners out there on how to be our best self? Is
No.
there any tips that you can give
Yeah.
to us?
Of course, I can talk all night long about that one. There are several things. First is control. Own the control of yourself. Own it. Really own the way you think. Really own the way you feel. Really own the words that you say, and really own the behavior that you do. And having that control over yourself will take you to the path of responsibility. So if you want to become the best version of yourself, start becoming responsible. And not using your childish way of thinking, like blaming or labeling, emotionalizing, personalizing. That's all the childish way of thinking. So if you really want to become the best version of yourself, own your power. Knowing that you can think, you can feel, you can say, and you can do, and have that power within you to actually be the master of yourself. Because nobody else can tell you what's the best version of you. Only you inside you can tell what the best version of you. And I've learned this the hard way, so that's why I like sharing about this one. You cannot compare yourself with others. You can only compare yourself with your yesterday self. So if you just become a bit better than yesterday, you're on the path of becoming the best version of you. And the title, Becoming the Best Version of You, is not actually something that you can attain immediately. I cannot say to myself, I've become the best version of myself right now, today at 9:18 Malaysian time. I cannot. It's just a process that you need to be able to be aware of, that you are responsible for whatever you think, whatever you feel, whatever you say, and whatever you do. That's the first one. The second one is knowing who you are. And I don't mean this as a cliche, but knowing who you are means that you accepted yourself, your strength and your weaknesses, your goodness and your bad, your achievement and your skeletons in the closets. Just accept all that and come to terms with yourself, knowing that you have all the power you need to succeed in you. You have all the resources you need. You just need to access them, strengthen them, and sequence them. And by knowing this, if you accepted all that, now you can be grateful for it. You can value it. You can appreciate it. So not just accepting self, but appreciating self. Thanking yourself for what you have done so far. All the bad things, all the good things, all the stupid things, all the smart things. Just appreciate it. It's a part of you. And it's because all that you're here. And what you are now here is different with who you are tomorrow. Who you are tomorrow, you decided now. So accepting yourself and appreciating yourself, meaning that you've given yourself a chance to become a better person. You've given a chance, knowing because you are valuable. You have that power within you. So appreciating and valuing self and be grateful for self. And then the last one is and the last one is appreciating, not just appreciating, but in awe of self. You in awe of self. Because you're such a wonderful being. You are created such wonderfully and beautifully inside your mom's womb. Whoever you are valued. You have that power within you. So that's the two things to become a better version of you.
Alright, so I have a concern, right? The people in this era, right? Like they used to overthink themselves, and
Yeah.
they like to think the negative things about themselves. So how can they be their best self if they keep on thinking the bad about themselves?
I think it's very common. I don't think it's just you. I don't think it's everybody. I think it's everybody. But I like to think it this way. Don't think it as positive and negative. Think of it as, is it useful or not useful? Because sometimes negative things is quite useful. Let's imagine 1,000,000 years ago, the human that doesn't have any fear, that doesn't think negative. I think most of them are dead. They don't have any fear. They don't have any negative thoughts. Hey, what's that sound there, buddy? Rawr, it's a dinosaur. They got eaten. Those who are afraid still lives. So, positive and negative is just a classification that you made that is probably not quite useful. So instead of thinking negative or positive, think, is it useful for me right now? If I think negative and it's useful for me, use it. If it's not useful, change it. Because there are two kinds of people. People who are optimistic and pessimistic. And it's not which one is better than which, and it's not which one is good or bad. It's just two different kinds of thinking. That's why it starts with accepting yourself, including accepting the way you think. If you like to think negative thoughts, then you are a very valuable person in business. I will give my business plans after I finish calculating, after I finish making all the business plan. I'm going to give it to the most pessimistic people in my team for them to tell me what could go wrong with it. But I will not give it early on. Early on, when I'm building my business plan, I'm going to give it to the most pessimist, to the most optimist and positive person in my team. They're going to make everything. They create the dream. But then after all that, I'm going to give it to the most pessimistic to tear that down, and I have a balanced business plan.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a question over here, Paige. Accept yourself. Is it include self-centered or self-preservation?
Now, there's two different things. Self-centered means just you see the world from your own perspective. So that's self-centered. Self-preservation meaning that you know that there's a danger out there and you need to keep yourself safe. So here's the part. When you're living by wanting to be safe all the time, then you're living actually based on fear. So when you accept self, when you appreciate self, and when you're in awe of self, that creates self-esteem. So that separate you, the being, from the things that you do. The things that you do can fail, but not you as a human being is a failure. The things that you can do can break down. The things that you can do can goes terribly wrong. But it doesn't just mean that you are wrong. So accepting self, appreciating self, and in awe of self create a self-esteem that will free you from fear. Therefore, even though you need to preserve yourself, but you know if something bad happens, you can trust yourself to take care of it. And that's called self-efficacy. You trust yourself in the future, knowing that probably I cannot do it now, but if I want, I can use my resources to think, to feel, to say, to do, to find how I can succeed in the future. So it's just owning that self-power, that the power that's within you to become the better version of you. Now it's very different with self-centered, because self-centered, now you're just using the childish way of thinking that's personalizing or filtering. You filter everything based on what you know and based on what you think you know. That's a very childish way of thinking, because most children are selfish. Most children are self-centered. Now here's the difference. As an adult, of course you can be self-centered, but don't forget that you live in a social world. You are responsible for self. You are not responsible for others, but you are responsible in creating that relationship. So you have a relationship that you are responsible to. So instead of self-centeredness, how I like to think about it as becoming the best together. Think of it as an ecological self. You know what you're doing is good for you and good for the others. And it's not like I'm winning and everybody else is losing. Because we can do a lot of things better together than alone or apart.
Coach, seems like we have come to an end.
Oh,
so
okay.
is there any message you would like to give to our audience for this evening?
Sure. Just know that you can be the best version of yourself. And it's already within inside you. It's just waiting to come out. And if you want it to come out, come to terms with yourself. Accept yourself, appreciate self, be in awe of self, and trust yourself in the future. And then owning it and never let it go. Because when you own it, now you have the power to think, to feel, to say, and to do, to become the best version of you. And I like to end this with a quote from Maslow. If you are planning to sell yourself short and become the less of what you're capable for, here's the warning. You'll be unhappy for the rest of yourself, for the rest of your life. So don't plan to sell yourself short. Be the best that you can be, because it's inside you. You just need to access them, strengthen them, and sequence them. And if you want to learn how, ReSkill is one of the place to learn it. There's a lot of great coaches here. You can learn whatever you want to become the best version of you.
Yes, all right. Thank you, Coach Irvan, for the
Thank you very
good
much.
sharing today. So
I hope it's useful. It's been such a pleasure with you, Nadira. Thank you for hosting. And thank you everybody for watching.
Yeah, it's an honor for us to have you here with us today.
It's my pleasure.
So I guess we've come to an end. So thank you so much for the sharing today, Coach.
You're so welcome.
I'll see you on the next ReSkills online class, yeah?
Will do.
All right, thank you.
Thank